Happy Friday. Welcome back to Weather on the Go. All your weather coverage on this Friday, November the 14th, 2025. A few big storm systems are expected to ensue across the United States and Canada over the next 10 days and bring widespread heavy flooding, rainfall, early season snow, and even potentially some severe weather. We're going to be highlighting the impacts that these storms will bring out your door over the next few days from coast to coast and from Canada to Mexico. So make sure to seatbelt yourself in because we have a long weather forecast in store for you. A lot of great information, so make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you do like these informative videos, subscribe. Also like the video, give it a thumbs up if you enjoy it throughout, and share it and also hype it. Definitely appreciate that as well. Let's look here at the big picture and the colder air associated with our trough. Now moving away from the eastern United States and up here into eastern Canada, we have big blocking high pressure up here in Greenland and then high pressure building in across the central United States here as well. A bigger storm, though, is starting to move inward of the west coast. And this storm is going to be bringing some widespread heavy rainfall as we go through the weekend. But that is not the only storm. We have another one diving down from the Northeast Pacific into California as we go into early next week. And if that's not enough, we have yet another one diving down from the Northeast Pacific, again impacting California late next week. And that's not all. We have one more in the ballots across the west as we go into the middle of the following week. So what we're going to be looking at here is across the west first, because this is going to bring a pineapple express of moisture across the west coast. And green is rain and blue is snow. And notice as we go into the weekend, a lot of rainfall here falling across central and southern California. This includes major metropolitan hubs of Los Angeles, San Diego, and also Sacramento as we go through the weekend. Of course, in the blue there in the Sierras, we could be seeing some heavy mountain snow. That takes us from Saturday into Sunday, but that's the first storm. Second storm comes in as we go into early next week. This will be spreading moisture all across the west, not just for California, but for areas of Washington, Oregon, Nevada, even as far east as Utah and Arizona. And then as we go into late next week, a third system will be moving in, bringing more of the same, and then that fourth system as well. So several systems moving through, and this just takes you through Monday morning at 7 a.m., November 17th. Rainfall amounts in the Los Angeles area could be pushing 6 or 7 inches, which is why there are flood areas of concern. We have a moderate risk of flash flooding, which is a pretty decent chance, at least a 40% chance of a flash flood event here within a 25-mile radius of the Los Angeles area here for today. And then as we go into tomorrow, notice the slight risk expands inland to areas of Vegas there and even into northwestern Arizona, while the moderate risk of at least a 40% chance of a flash flood event still remains in place near and around the Los Angeles area. It's not till Sunday to where we start to see the flood risk really start to decrease, although there's still a marginal risk of flash flooding across coastal California north to south as we go into Sunday, which is at least a 5% chance of a flash flood risk within a 25-mile radius. So that's why we do have flood watches already in place across Los Angeles, San Diego, Fresno, San Bernardino, and surrounding areas. We have winter storm watches and warnings already up for the Sierras, as we were expecting several inches of snowfall. And so going through the weekend, like we mentioned, that's why we could see 6 to 7 inches in that 2-day period. So watch out for mudslides. But as we go through the next 10 days, taking you through Monday, November 24th, we could be seeing upwards to 15 inches of rain, including the downtown Los Angeles area and surrounding communities seeing at least 4 to 7 inches. So a large chunk of California going to be getting very wet and getting soaking rainfall as we go through the next 7 to 10 days. And not only with the rain, but the snow. We look at the Sierras out here, 40 inches. That equates to around 3.5 feet of snow just within the next couple of days. This goes through 7 a.m. on Monday, November 17th. And then we take you through the next 10 days, we could be seeing 71 inches. So several feet of snow are on the way here for the Sierras, and a few feet may be possible for the Cascades in the Pacific Northwest and the Rockies here across areas of Montana, Idaho, Utah, Wyoming, down here into Colorado, and the mountainous areas in Arizona and New Mexico as well through the next 10 days. Now we look at the big weather pattern picture again because that ridge downstream in the central United States is locked in place today. And oh boy, is it warm out there for November. Mid-November, we are pushing 40 degrees above normal with our temperature anomalies across the plains and into the Midwest. And I have no reason to believe that won't continue into the weekend and especially even into early next week across the southern plains, where we still could be hanging on to those temperature anomalies 20 to 30 degrees above normal. So for today, yeah, all these areas boxed out here with the numbers in that box is where we could see record highs, and that extends all the way up into Lake Superior there near northwest Wisconsin, believe it or not, with 60s ticketed up there toward the Duluth area to the 90-degree mark potentially as far south and west as Lubbock, Amarillo, and Abilene, Texas as we go into this afternoon. Doesn't end there. I think more of the southern plains could see 90-degree temperatures on Saturday. Still some pleasant 70s up into the Midwest there on Saturday. Sunday gets a little cooler for the Midwest Ohio Valley, but we're still talking record highs in Texas on Sunday, Monday, and even going into Tuesday. It's not till Wednesday, the middle of next week, where we start to see the cooler air start to move southward from Canada and get rid of our record high potential towards the middle of next week. Also, with this pattern, we have a lot of fluctuation with temperatures, so that means we're going to have an active weather pattern starting to develop across the central United States leading up to Thanksgiving weekend, and it looks like a couple of big storms are likely. We have one storm, you blink, you miss it, from Canada, moving down from Ontario and Quebec into the northeast, could be bringing some snowfall into interior parts of the New England region, Maine down there toward western New York State and northwest Pennsylvania, toward Erie, Pennsylvania. I think the coastal regions will be mainly liquid, so rainfall. And then as we go through later in the week, I do feel we're going to see a larger storm coming in with the low pressure in and around the Kansas City area, Des Moines, or St. Louis, somewhere in that ballpark. And that means the warm side will be down here into the Dixie Alley. That's where we have to watch out for potentially some severe weather. Now, snowfall here going through the weekend with that smaller storm system into the northeast could be piling up some accumulating snow for areas, especially in the northern and northeastern Maine. So Caribou potentially could be seeing over 6 inches worth of snowfall. And then again, we look at that larger storm coming in as we go towards late next week, Thursday into Friday. So the 20th into the 21st of November, and that could potentially give us some severe weather. Over there at NIU, the week 2 accumulated supercell composite parameter, basically putting moisture, instability, wind shear all into one parameter space and giving you the likelihood of severe weather. Where there are some colors there showing up as far north as Des Moines and as far south as the Gulf Coast. So we're going to have to watch that going into later next week with that particular storm. The moisture is going to be advancing northward from the Gulf as we go toward late next week. 50s, low 60 dew points. The instability is going to be there here into the yellows. That's where we could see over 2,000 joules per kilogram, especially the further south you go for late season standards. And then we have the trough. We have the wind shear. So we're going to be starting to see a little bit more of wind energy into the atmosphere. And notice the trough geometry is not really suitable for a tornado outbreak, but definitely could still see a few tornadoes, especially damaging winds and hail in this type of setup Thursday the 20th and into Friday the 21st. Something to keep an eye on. And here we go. We get potentially some bigger cities in the mix here. Dallas, Fort Worth, Tulsa, Little Rock, and then down towards Shreveport and Houston, we could be seeing that again Thursday afternoon through Friday morning, keeping an eye on that time frame late next week. Nonetheless, it's going to be spreading some widespread heavy rain across the central United States in general, with a widespread 2 to 4 inches of soaking rain as far north as the Great Lakes and as far south as Texas and the Gulf Coast. And obviously across the west, that's where the cold side will be, and that's where the snowfall will be flying. Otherwise, areas in the Dakotas could see some snow showers, maybe especially in the grassy surfaces, some accumulation, but I don't expect an overall huge snowstorm from this. I think it's going to be more of a warm system, so severe weather probably going to be more prevalent with that first system. Now, looking into Canada, it's going to be warm up here too over the next 10 days, taking you through Monday, November the 24th. And it's also going to be quite active at times with some smaller scale storms moving through the flow. In the blue, that's the snowfall. And we're going to see a lot more of that here. Even though we're warmer than normal in Canada, your high temperature averages are much lower than the United States, your neighbor to the south. So we look at the snowfall and you can see plentiful snow, accumulating snow, enough to shovel, enough to plow up here across Canada. and that could be potentially adding up to more than a foot in some areas within the next 10 days, going through Monday, November 24th. We look here at the northern hemisphere and we take you to the stratosphere in particular. That's where the polar vortex resides. And why in the heck are we talking about the stratosphere? Well, the sudden stratospheric warming event has just commenced, and it takes about 2 weeks for that cold air to reach it from the stratosphere about 10-20 miles up here above our heads to the surface of the earth where we live in the atmosphere, or what we call the troposphere. And you could see that is starting to commence today, and by the time we get towards next week, that polar vortex is really going to be hammering areas there in Europe, and then really start to build here as we go into late November with a blocking high up here over portions of Alaska. That is always something that changes our weather here, because if you get a high pressure in Alaska, warmer air, well, it's going to force the colder air further south, and a polar vortex disruption event is definitely a possibility. So as we go into late November, get ready for some cold, wintry weather, not only just for the west or the central, but all of the lower 48 here into the last week of November, especially around Thanksgiving, and then really starting to intensify. Notice the greens start to show up along and east of the Mississippi as we get into the first week of December with that polar vortex disruption, or that sudden stratospheric warming event that is going to be taking place. Again, it's a 2-week lag. It's happening now. It won't reach the surface of the earth here until around the end of November and the first week of December. That's all the weather I have for you today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. We cover Canada, the United States, the tropics. Like the video, give it a thumbs up, share it with a friend, family member, and on social media. Hype the video. Definitely appreciate that as well. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful, safe rest of your Friday out there.